Welcome to the Leadership Variations Unfiltered podcast, where each limited run series tackles the leadership problems no one is naming, how women in STEM actually succeed, why leadership fads always fail, and where talent strategy breaks down when the stakes are the highest. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. I am Amy Bladen Shatto, leadership consultant and coach to women in STEM, and your host of Leadership Variations Unfiltered podcast. In this first limited series, Cracking the Code, from underestimated to undeniable, we spotlight women leaders in STEM who've risen to senior roles, often without the recognition they so deserve. Today's guest is Dr. Wanda Toro Turini, a trailblazing leader who's built and rebuilt success on her own terms. She began her career at Novartis, where she led national sales initiatives, helped launch blockbuster therapies, and earned multiple President's Club awards. But Wanda did not stop there. She went on to found two high-impact companies, Bullseye Innovations and Rocket Fuel Inc., developing her first in-market platforms that transitioned how healthcare professionals, or I've learned HCPs, engage with technology and commercial teams. As an entrepreneur, she spearheaded multi-million-dollar sales strategies, led high-performing teams, and became a trusted advisor for life science organizations, navigating growth, innovation, and physician engagement. Years later, Wanda made the rare but powerful decision to return to corporate life. Now serving as a top-performing rare disease specialist at another top 10 multi-billion-dollar global pharma company, bringing with her not just the commercial excellence, but her hard-won wisdom. Wanda's story isn't about just starting over. It's about knowing when to pivot, how to honor your own evolution, and why defining success is sometimes the boldest leadership move of all. For women in STEM navigating reinvention, her journey is a powerful reminder. Your leadership doesn't have to look traditional to be undeniable. Welcome, Wanda.
Thank you for having me. That was awesome. Can you just travel around with me and just introduce me?
I think I'd like you to travel around with me. I'm in awe. Are you ready to jump in?
I am ready. I'm ready.
I'm really kind of sad. You are the closer of what's been a really amazing series.
I've heard amazing things.
I'm excited to have you.
Thank you for having me and including me.
Many people don't know is Wanda is also a dear, dear friend and someone I look up to and just have admired for many, many years. I had to throw that in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with what you built as an inventor, leader, and entrepreneur. Tell me, as an entrepreneur, something you built that you were the most proud of and that you'd really like other people to understand about that chapter of your leadership.
It's interesting. So I am very proud that I left a very comfortable corporate position to just try being an entrepreneur. I felt like when I was at Novartis, I was really blessed with a great team that recognized that I was always problem solving. I always needed something new to try. I got bored very easily. And they took care of me very well. I had the opportunity to, like you said, launch multiple amazing oncology products, learn from some amazing people because I was a pharmacist. And when I got my PharmD, I did my fellowship and I had the opportunity to do a fellowship within a pharmaceutical company, which was a very unusual thing at the time for a healthcare professional to learn marketing and business. I pretty much thought I was always going to work at a hospital as a pharmacist. And in my soul, I really wanted to run a business. And I'm kind of going back a little bit, but it kind of sets the stage in the sense of when I was a pharmacist, I actually wanted to own my own pharmacy, my own shop. And then the big Walgreens and CVSs were taking over all of the mom and pop shops. And it wound up not really being a thing anymore to do that. But it was interesting because when I reflected back, I'm like, wow, that was like from college. I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. When I was looking for my fellowship opportunities, my dean was like, you're going to get in. You're going to get in wherever you want. I heard you've been doing really great work. And I was like, that's cool. And he was like, you don't seem excited. And I'm like, well, okay, I know this sounds like ungrateful and kind of weird, but yeah, I'm a science nerd and all of that stuff, but I'm also theatrical. I was like, I have this whole creative side to my persona. And I just feel like working in the ER and critical care, which is what I was going to be doing, is not going to satisfy that. And he said, well, I have an interesting proposition. Novartis is exploring bringing in a PharmD in their marketing team for oncology to kind of help them understand oncologists, how to market to them, how to educate them, et cetera. And I was like, sign me up. So I interviewed. It was one of the hardest interviews in my entire life, by the way. And I got in. But my point is that they took great care of me. But as I started listening to myself, I really believe like when you get nervous or upset, or like your body tells you when there's friction in your life, right? And a lot of times, because of the outside messages that we've had from our parents or from other people, like, you're going to be awesome, Wanda, then I felt like I was doing things more for them than for me. But what happens is that your body will tell you when you're not doing the right thing. And I know that you probably coach people on this, but it took me a long time to kind of recognize, because the coaches that I had within corporate were coaching me to serve their needs, right? Within their organization. I don't think it was really well developed back then, where I feel like people and managers are a little bit more aware of kind of coaching the person and actually finding satisfaction in developing them and helping somebody get to where they're meant to be. That wasn't how it was before, right? Before it was like, we're going to get you to where we need you to be. And so there came to a certain point where I was being coached amazingly, but it was for their purposes and not for mine. And I knew that I was going to a leadership position where I would be managing a team. And I thought, I don't want to be a grumpy manager. Like, I know that as a manager, like, you have the privilege of being able to influence people's lives and make them feel like they're working frictionless, right? But if I'm experiencing friction, then it would be very difficult for me to authentically do that for others. And so I realized that in order for me to be a good leader, whatever I was going to do, that I needed to follow my dreams. So I would say, to answer your question the long way,
It's
is that
okay.
one of the things I'm most proud of is breaking that comfort and starting my own business. And I owned that business for 19 years. I technically consider myself, I still own one of the businesses. So it's 20 years for that one. But for 19 years, and tactically, I did a lot of things. I invented a lot of processes and procedures. And I say invented in the sense that I allowed my creativity to kind of meet my problem solving and create solutions to problems that didn't exist, right? I kind of start my solution building from almost like a visionary dreamer sort of mindset. Like, I don't think of the restrictions first. I think of like, what if, like, what would be like the most awesomest thing? And then I apply the restrictions and figure out how to mold it according to that. So I did a lot of that process wise for organizations, lots of pharmaceutical companies. And then I invented a texting application that solved a major problem. We won't get into it right now, but it was a big leap. I spent a lot of my personal profits on doing something that was like my dream. I was like, what if we had something that allowed an audience to text for information and I could get their lead? And that was, yeah, 17 years ago that I invented that. But anyway, so I'm proud. But when you think of like all of these things, the biggest thing is being proud of listening to myself, I guess. And that doesn't happen consistently. Like, I can say that now, but there were times where I was doing a lot of not listening to myself. But the biggest thing is being able to catch yourself and realize, like, whoa, okay, there's something wrong. It's not just about stress, because stress could be good stress, right? Like, you could
Yeah.
be working towards something that you really love and it's stressful, but it's not depressing. It's interesting to kind of understand the nuances of your feelings. One of the biggest things is it's difficult to claim your brilliance. One, if you don't know what your brilliance is.
The identity question.
Yeah. And with time, I developed the understanding that there were a lot of different things that were influencing my identity. It could be either, and most of the time is other people's expectations of you, right? As you evolve in life, and you may wind up being really good at one particular thing, but being good at something doesn't mean that that is your unique brilliance, by the way. You could be
Interesting.
good at a lot. I was unfortunately good at a lot of things that didn't feed my soul. Like I just so happened to be really good at them, right?
That's so interesting, Wanda. I am constantly telling the women that I'm coaching, just because you're really good at something doesn't mean that's your next step. You want to be very purposeful in your development. And just because
Oh,
the company, you said something so important, the company thinks, wow, this is a great opportunity. You want to think about, is this the opportunity, to use your words, feeds your soul? Fantastic. Really.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, like I didn't get here like figuring it out myself. This is why I'm a huge proponent of tapping into experts, right?
Yep.
And even if, for example, even if you're a marketing expert, to actually tap into another marketing expert because other people see you differently, right? They can give you feedback that's not clouded by your past
Yeah.
experiences or what other people may have said to you or whatever. Like they see you as you are now. So I worked with, well, one, having you as a wonderful friend, it really helps. But you connected me with some awesome psychologists as well. I was a psychologist, and I've worked with several different executive coaches while I was an entrepreneur and have kept some of those coaches while I transitioned back into corporate because I feel like it helps me stay grounded to what my personal goals are, right? Not the goals of the company. When it was my own company, it would be these influences is one big thing where my father would always say to me since I was little, keep your eye on the carrot. Like, keep your eye on the carrot, Wanda, keep your eye on the carrot. And it was very motivating to me. And he meant it really well. I mean, the word perseverance was this like constant like term that was used in our family and such. But what I had recognized in working with the coach is that mantra of keep your eye on the carrot also brought in these blinders.
Mhm.
These- I remember the coach saying to me, so what happens when a donkey is following the carrot? They're missing everything that they're passing by, and they never get to the carrot, by the way. So it's always there, always there. And what happened is I realized that as much as that was very motivating, that term was motivating for me. And a lot of my perseverance comes from that mindset that my parents gave me. I realized that I couldn't celebrate successes because I was always keeping my eye on the carrot. The donkey never gets the carrot, just keeps on going. And by the way, misses all the awesome things that are happening along the way, which was something that I was doing, you know, as well. So it's interesting. I highly recommend folks to work with work with an expert like yourself so that they can actually understand what their unique brilliance is, and then they can hold on to it and claim it.
Thank you for saying that, but there's all different kinds of experts that are out there that might suit, what your particular need is too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And especially with running a business, I was constantly tapping into experts for all sorts of things. And it really accelerated my growth, which led me to actually start my company, Rocket Fuel, because Rocket Fuel was really about acceleration, right? Being able to help other entrepreneurs tap into experts so that they could accelerate their growth and kind of sharing that it's okay to do that, right? So I would say I didn't find my first coach didn't come into my life until 10 years, like real coach, 10 years into me being an entrepreneur. And part of that problem, and I call that a problem because I should have had a coach way earlier in my career. But part of that problem was people saying, like, you got this. You're smart. You can figure it out. So, what happens is that it kind of feels like a failure if I couldn't figure it out. So, like, getting help was in my brain, like admitting that I couldn't figure it out. But actually, oh, yes.
I am so glad you said that because we women, this is a huge topic with women, even more than men. Men have their old boys network. They're always helping each other and pulling each other. We women think we have to do it all ourselves. We have to do it. We're proving ourselves constantly. First, help one another. Secondly, find where our resources are. And thirdly, the coaching. I'm so glad we're talking about this too, because with the coaching, the coach directs our resources. The coach asks us questions that help us dig deeper to find out, well, what is the purpose? Where are we going? And by the way, how are we going to measure success? Because there's nothing wrong that you waited for a while to get to that point, because you allowed yourself to form that identity. But getting there faster would have allowed you to, figure out, how am I going to measure this? And what we measure is what gets done. If we don't measure it, then we don't get it done. So your story about the donkey and the carrot is the perfect one.
Yeah, there's no milestone. And the thing is, you have to be able to kind of like set what that milestone is along, you have your further GPS destination, right? But there need to be those like rest stops where you're like,
exactly.
I kind of made this and I made that. And you know that you're on your way.
All right, I'm going to jump into another topic. So I want to know about the courage to step away from your entrepreneurship and what it was like re-entering corporate life after 19 years, you said?
Yeah.
And how did you come to see this for yourself as a strategic decision, not a, retreat? I mean, I see it as a, really brave and intentional leadership move, but I want to know, like, how did you frame it for yourself?
Yeah, so I do want to be authentic, honest about like the journey.
Please, unfiltered, Wanda. We're unfiltered here.
Yeah, unfiltered. It sucked, right? Because when I started my business, I was single. I was in this process of kind of discovering who I was, understanding what my unique brilliance was, which is this journey. And it was a very like self-focused kind of journey. I love helping people. I'm an empath, all of these things, but that's what my life was, right? My baby was my business. And I was very proud of my independence and all of the things that I had accomplished. And like, I was the one that invented Catchwords in my software program. And I built it from scratch. And I hired the techie people and all these things. And it was like my thing. And then I met my husband, right? Then there are like shared decisions, right? There's the influence of like, okay, well, along with this journey, which was amazing and extremely satisfying, there are a lot of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster. And you have to be willing to ride that roller coaster. And by the way, I was an adrenaline junkie. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I can handle it. So life evolves and your priorities evolve. And it's hard because I felt like there were things that were still undone, right? It's like, but there's a sacrifice. If I like obsessed about finishing this thing, that by the way, keeping my eye on the carrot, in reality, my brain would have never been satisfied with achieving an endpoint. Like I recognize that now, and I still have to remind myself, right? I know personality wise, like there have never been like an end point at that point that would have been good enough. But I had to make decisions along the way. And then it's like, okay, I got married and I realized I want children. And this is something that's, yes, sure, we raise families together as man and wife or wife and wife or man and man or whatever, right? But as a woman, I had to recognize that I needed to actually incubate this child, right? Like I'm incubating this business and I'm physically having to incubate this child. And I need to make some sacrifices. I need to make some choices. And so it had been like this whole process of starting to kind of balance. After COVID, and it was fine. After COVID, it was really hard because I was pregnant with my son during COVID. So it was just like, oh my gosh, I had a baby during COVID at 49, by the way. So that was like nuts. And my business had to change because my business model completely depended on live events, by the way, at that moment. So it was super traumatic and it was very, very tumultuous several years. And what I recognize is like sometimes you get to the point where you're trying to hold on so much because you are a successful person, right? Like, oh, people say great things about me. Like, if I don't succeed at this, that means all the things that I ever did just freaking go out the window. That's how it feels. It doesn't happen that way, ladies. That is not the case.
Thank
You
you.
are, you are still all those other things. But at the moment, it didn't feel that way. It felt like if I say no to this and drop this, that means I'm a failure. But I held on. I held on way too long. I should have just like been like, I need this like break to kind of think. And I finally made that decision. And it wasn't difficult. I'm proud of myself that I did finally make the decision. In retrospect, I probably should have made that decision earlier, but my ego was holding on to it. It was just kind of like, I'm supposed to be a successful person. What happened? Like, I couldn't recover from COVID. What happened? And then all of a sudden, I'm not where my GPS was sending me. Like, I'm over here, right? Once again, losing sight that it's a journey, right? And I was looking at, I'm like, I'm over here thinking like I can never get back or I can never change, to another destination that I might also really love. So there was a lot of turmoil there. So I feel like the success of the transition is one, having done it, but then also recognizing that I needed a lot of coaching help to get me through the transition so that I can remember like what my brilliance was, right? So that I can have somebody else help me remember that I am talented and I do have all of these things to offer. And I made a decision because of the circumstances that made sense at that point. Now I have stability, financial stability in my life. I could be a better mom. I could be a better wife. And I can also be a better visionary and problem solver, which is how I identify myself. I recognize that being entrepreneurial doesn't necessarily mean that you're your own boss.
So how
And
are
that,
you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no. And then I could still be entrepreneurial as I return back to corporate. And so I'm excited about actually, I mean, I have to realize like I did a lot of entrepreneurial things on my wallet. And now if I can apply all those things that I've learned, one in healthcare for the benefit of patients, which I love because I was originally a PharmD, right? So to be able to return to healthcare, but to be able to have financial backing to actually, deliver some things that can have huge impact. I'm really excited about that. So that was my honest kind of like, there's good and bad to the whole thing, but I chose to keep ownership of who I am and what my identity is, because I think I looked at corporate in the past as something that was stealing away from my identity. And that's
There
because
we
I
go.
didn't know myself.
So you found your identity in your entrepreneurial endeavor, and you were able to take your wisdom that you learned from that and reinfuse it into what you're
Exactly.
doing now in corporate and still be able to feed your soul.
Exactly.
So you're having it all in terms of your family without burning yourself out or feeling like you have to do it in a way that society dictates for you.
Yes, yes, yes. And now I get the opportunity to look at, I still have my software that I would like to see be used more. And so now I realize, well, I'm okay with actually finding the right partner to kind of carry that torch. And before it was like, no, this is my baby. I have to. And so there's an evolution. There's an evolution to that whole process. But identity, and I know that you do a lot of work in helping people kind of understand that. I think that's really critical because you want to make decisions that are true to who you are, and then you get less emotional friction as a
So
result.
it's a redefinition and a letting go of the things that were, as you described it, your ego. And now it's a maturity and a finding out how you can, in this more mature place. I love your euphemism, the carrot and the stick. And now you're kind of going forward, still having a vision and using all your brilliance, but you get to see what's along the sides as you go. And no one's telling you where to go. It's not someone else's vision anymore. It's Wanda's vision.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting, like in corporate. And once again, you could probably speak to this, but I feel like, 20, 30 years ago, the development of people was just very different. And so I felt like the development was really like, how do we make you fit into our thing? And not like, hey, let's help you figure out like, what's your jam? Like, what's your rocket fuel, right? And then how can it serve us? But don't wait for somebody to do that. Like, take ownership yourself, because then you'll find those opportunities that you'll really flourish in, because you're realizing that it's matching your unique brilliance.
Beautiful. Well said. Well, we're coming to the very end, and I always end with the same thing, what I call the undeniable take. So, what is one truth that you give to the woman who's ready to lead, but still being underestimated? So, she's the one who knows she's got it, but hasn't cracked the code like you clearly have. What do you want her to know and maybe carry forward from you?
I guess the biggest thing is that your value is defined by how you feel about yourself, not about how others. If you feel like other people are underestimating you, I think there's an opportunity to reflect on whether you're truly expressing your brilliance and awesomeness as well as you could be. And then if not, if you are and it's not recognized, then you go somewhere where you're recognized. But when you're feeling underestimated, when you're feeling, a little worried about your confidence, then I find it very helpful to reflect on the evidence of your successes, whether it's documenting them, whether it's taking a moment to look back and say, hey, I did this and I did that. And why do I feel like I should be treated like I'm awesome? Is because, oh, I am. It's not a pump up. This is where like, it's not just about like fluffing yourself up with mindset, because sometimes you could fluff yourself up too much and your capability isn't matching that yet, right? It's great to be like, I could be this. And I really look forward to like doing all the things so that I can get to that goal, right? So recognize where you are in that confidence game and collect evidence for yourself to ensure that you're not underestimating yourself. And then I feel like that starts to kind of translate to other people.
Well said. Thank you so much, Wanda. And this closes us out for this episode of Cracking the Code.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining. For more unfiltered advice and tools that drive real business value, subscribe to our newsletter, connect on LinkedIn, or book a consult, because leadership development fails when we solve the wrong problems. Find all links below.